The mansion stood quietly, its halls gleaming under the soft evening lights. Silence hung in the air, heavier than the expensive curtains and marble floors could hide. In one of the rooms, a mother sat quietly, looking down at her twins. Their tiny hands rested motionless, and their faces showed no sign of sound or movement. From the moment they were born, life had been different, harder, and infinitely more delicate. The twins were paralyzed. They could not speak, and every day was a careful balancing act between hope and fear. The mother had spent countless nights awake, listening to the soft breaths of her children, counting every heartbeat, praying for a miracle she didn't know would come. It was during one of these restless nights that she first noticed something unusual. The mansion was large, with many staff members attending to the house and the children. But there was one person who always moved differently, quietly, almost too quietly. The janitor. He cleaned the halls at odd hours, sometimes late at night when no one else was awake. His eyes seemed to flicker, not with malice, but with a purpose she couldn't understand. At first, she told herself it was nothing. Janitors worked late. Maybe he was just thorough. But then, small things began to happen. A chair moved slightly from where she remembered placing it. A small toy the twins loved was slightly out of place. And yet, there was no logical explanation. One evening, as the mother walked through the hall carrying the tray of warm milk for the twins, she paused. The janitor was already there, sweeping quietly. He didn't look at her, didn't speak. But something about the way he paused, just for a moment, made her uneasy. She knew every inch of this house. She knew every creak and every shadow. But tonight, she felt a shiver she couldn't explain. Her curiosity battled with caution. She wanted to confront him, to ask him why he was moving things, or why he always seemed to be watching the twins from a distance. But something told her to wait, to watch first. Suspicion grew quietly, like a shadow stretching across the walls. Days passed, and the pattern became clear. The janitor was always near the twins, but never when she could catch him directly. He seemed to vanish as soon as she entered a room. And yet, the twins' eyes occasionally followed him, their small heads turning slightly, as if they recognized him in a way no one else could. The mother's mind raced. Was he dangerous? Or was he something else entirely? Could he have been helping the twins in secret? Or was it something darker? She didn't know who to trust anymore, not in her own house. Not in the quiet moments where only the faint hum of the night remained. It was during one particularly long night that she decided to find out. She waited until the clock struck midnight, when the mansion was still and silent. The children were asleep, or as close to sleep as they could ever be, and the staff had long gone to their own quarters. From the shadows of the hallway, she watched. She held her breath as the janitor appeared, quietly entering the twins' room. His movements were slow, careful, almost reverent. And then she saw something she couldn't explain at first. He knelt beside the twins' small beds, not touching them, but whispering something softly, as if speaking to the air itself. Her heart pounded. Could it be? She needed to see more, but stepping closer would risk him noticing. So she stayed hidden, her eyes wide, her mind spinning with fear and anticipation. For the first time in many nights, she realized she didn't know what to feel. Fear? Relief? Suspense? Her instincts told her she was about to witness something extraordinary, something she could never have imagined. And in that quiet moment, the story of the twins, the mansion, and the janitor was about to take a turn she would never forget. The mother couldn't sleep that night. Her mind replayed every subtle movement, every whispered sound she had glimpsed from the shadows. The janitor's actions didn't make sense. He had never touched the twins roughly, never raised his voice, yet something about the secrecy gnawed at her. She needed answers, and she knew she couldn't ignore what she had seen. The next morning, the mansion hummed with its usual activity. Housekeepers dusted the polished surfaces, chefs prepared breakfast, and the twins rested in their special beds. The mother moved quietly, observing the janitor from a distance. He carried out his duties efficiently, sweeping, mopping, organizing, all while keeping an eye on the twins' room. He never seemed aware of her watching. Curiosity pushed her forward. She decided to follow him, but cautiously, without letting him know. Every step she took was measured, each creak of the floor a potential risk. She had to see what he did when no one was watching, to understand the purpose behind the strange, quiet devotion she had witnessed. The janitor moved to the twins' room again. This time in the late afternoon, when the sun cast long shadows across the floor. He knelt beside them, reaching under the beds, and pulled out small, carefully wrapped packages. The mother's heart raced. What were those? Toys? Medicines? Or something else entirely? She couldn't see clearly, and the suspense tightened around her chest. Slowly, she approached closer, careful not to make a sound. From a doorway, she could finally see him clearly. He was placing soft, colorful objects near the twins' hands, objects that looked like tiny, handcrafted toys or instruments. He adjusted them gently, almost reverently, and then sat back, watching the twins as if he were waiting for a reaction. Her confusion deepened. He wasn't harming them. He wasn't doing anything bad. But why the secrecy? Why hide it from her? The mother, the person who cared for the twins above all else. She had assumed danger, but now doubt crept in. Could he be helping them in some way she hadn't considered? Over the next few days, she began observing more closely. The janitor never left the room immediately. He often hummed softly, moved the tiny objects around, and sometimes even whispered in a strange, soothing tone. The twins, silent as they were, seemed to respond subtly. Their fingers twitched toward the objects, their tiny eyes flickered, and once, a small smile formed on one of their faces. The mother's suspicion started to mix with awe. She had always known her children were fragile, almost untouchable, in their quiet, motionless world. Yet here was someone who had found a way to reach them, in a language she couldn't yet understand. He wasn't a stranger. He wasn't a danger. And somehow he seemed to know them better than anyone else, but she still didn't know his full intention. Was it kindness or something else entirely? The suspense gnawed at her. She wanted to confront him, but she feared breaking the fragile trust that had formed between him and her children. Every action had to be calculated carefully. One evening, she decided to test her theory. Pretending to leave the room, she quietly hid behind a large curtain. The janitor entered the twins' room, carrying his usual small packages. He arranged them carefully, his hands steady and precise. Then, he did something she had never expected. He began to read aloud, but not from a book. From his own notebook, filled with tiny notes and sketches. He narrated stories in a calm, gentle voice. Stories full of imagination and warmth. Stories meant to engage and soothe the twins. The mother watched, amazed, as the twins' eyes followed his voice. Their fingers moved toward him, small smiles touching their lips, almost imperceptibly. Tears filled her eyes. She realized she had judged too quickly. The janitor wasn't a threat, he was a silent guardian, using creativity and patience to reach her children in ways she could not. Every suspicious act, every secret movement, was not something to fear but a gesture of care and love, hidden in plain sight. Yet, the suspense remained. Why had he never spoken about it? Why the secrecy? The mother needed to know the story behind the janitor's actions. Who was he? What drove him to care for her children so deeply, so quietly, so selflessly? Determined, she resolved to confront him, but not in anger or fear. She wanted to understand, to connect, to see the man behind the quiet devotion. That night, she stayed awake longer than ever, waiting for him to finish his routine. As he left the room, she quietly followed, stepping out of the shadows to finally speak. "What are you doing for them?" She asked softly, her voice barely above a whisper. The janitor froze, his eyes meeting hers, and for the first time, he smiled, a warm, genuine smile that carried both humility and pride. In that moment, she realized that the story she thought she knew was only beginning. The mother's journey of understanding, trust, and emotional revelation had only just started, and what she was about to discover would change everything she had assumed about kindness, love, and human compassion. The mother's voice hung in the quiet room. "What are you doing for them?" she asked, her tone soft but filled with urgency. The janitor paused, then looked at her with eyes that carried both humility and something else, something she couldn't yet name. He motioned for her to step closer, but not too close. He opened one of the small packages he had been carefully arranging for the twins. Inside were delicate, handcrafted toys, some made from soft cloth, others carved from gentle wood, each one uniquely designed to stimulate the twins' tiny, limited movements. These are for them?" she asked, her voice trembling slightly. "Yes," he said simply. "They cannot move, cannot speak, but they can feel, they can respond. I found ways to reach them where others cannot." The mother's heart raced. She had always feared for her twins, worried that their silence and paralysis would leave them disconnected from the world. Yet here was someone who had discovered a way to communicate, to connect, in ways she hadn't imagined possible. He continued, showing her the notebook he had been reading from. It wasn't just stories, it was a carefully planned set of activities designed to stimulate the twin senses. Colors, textures, sounds, and gentle vibrations, all organized to encourage response, to spark small movements, to give them a voice of their own. Even if only in tiny gestures, the mother knelt beside him, studying the tools and the approach. Tears filled her eyes. For so long, she had assumed his secrecy was suspicious, maybe even sinister. Now she realized how wrong she had been. Every quiet step, every hidden act, every whispered story had been a labor of love. The twins, silent and still, reacted subtly. One reached out a finger to touch the soft toy, and the other's eyes flickered toward the colors of the wooden blocks. The mother felt a lump in her throat. She had never seen such responses before. It was as if, finally, the world had found a way to reach them. "Why did you hide this?" she asked gently, her voice still trembling. The janitor looked down for a moment. "Because people don't always understand. Some see silence and paralysis and assume nothing can be done. I wanted to show them what is possible before anyone judged." The mother's admiration grew. Here was a man who had devoted his time, energy, and heart to her children without expecting recognition. A man who had chosen love and patience over acknowledgement. And in that moment, she understood. This was no ordinary janitor. This was a guardian, a silent protector, a quiet miracle in human form. Over the next few weeks, the mansion changed. The mother allowed the janitor to continue his work openly, observing his methods, learning how to participate. Together, they created a routine that blended care and innovation, allowing the twins to respond more each day. Neighbors and staff began to notice small changes. The twins, once completely still, started small gestures, tiny finger movements, slight shifts in posture, subtle smiles. The mansion, once silent and tense, was now filled with the soft hum of activity and quiet laughter. The mother often reflected on her initial suspicions. How easy it had been to judge someone by their secrecy. How quickly fear had replaced trust. And yet, in that space of doubt, she had discovered something extraordinary: the power of human kindness, perseverance, and empathy. One evening, as the mother watched the twins interact with their toys and listened to the janitor's stories, she felt a profound sense of gratitude. The janitor had not only changed her children's world, but had transformed hers. She realized that sometimes the most unbelievable acts of love are the quietest, hidden in the shadows where no one is watching. And so, life in the mansion took on a new rhythm. The twins, silent yet alive in their own unique way, continued to respond to the gentle guidance of their guardian. The mother, once fearful and suspicious, learned to trust and to see the beauty in patience and devotion. And the janitor, whose actions had once been a mystery, became a central figure in the children's lives, a symbol of the incredible difference one person can make with care, consistency, and love. The story of the twins and the janitor became a quiet legend within the family, a tale of patience overcoming fear, of love hidden in unexpected places, and of miracles that arrive not in grand gestures, but in small, steady acts of devotion. The mother often whispered to the twins, her voice filled with awe, "You are surrounded by people who care for you, in ways you may not even see yet." And sometimes, the most unbelievable acts of kindness happen when we least expect them. The janitor smiled from across the room, the twins reaching toward him with tiny, trembling hands. In that moment, the mansion felt alive, not just with luxury and wealth, but with hope, connection, and the quiet power of human goodness. And though the world outside would never know their story, inside those walls, a miracle had unfolded. One that proved that love, patience, and unwavering dedication could bridge even the deepest silence.